welcome to the party. We did it! This is a truly historic day. I'm so proud to be standing here with my colleagues, among my colleagues and friends, to recognize a commitment of $1.4 billion year over year. And because I've been giving my elevator pitch for a little while now, let me just remind you all of the historic elements of the Thrive Agenda. And I'll get to you last, because that's the best part. The first element that is historic about this is a 10-year commitment. We know, as the people who do the work on the ground, that work in partnership with community, the change does not happen in a 3-year funding cycle, nor does it happen in a 5-year funding cycle. Long-term, sustainable funding is what we need to do our work if we want to do our work well. This is a 10-year commitment. The second innovative element is we put some numbers in there. We've talked about 18 million women. We've talked about the women that we are going to reach with our SRHR commitment. We've talked about numbers. And Canada hasn't done that before in the way of, we're going to commit to a number of dollars and we're going to commit to a number of women. And just so you know where that number came from, 2015, 18 million is the population of women in Canada. So we're saying, this is the women we have here, and we're going to take and do our global fair share to make the SDGs happen. So that's another idea. Then I think the comprehensive approach. The comprehensive approach is how we do programming. It's how you, as policy people, as programmers, it's how you do your work every day. But what we struggled with in the tension of building the Thrive Agenda was, how do you call out certain areas that need special attention while maintaining a firm commitment to a comprehensive approach? How do you name things but also not lose things? And that is incredibly challenging. It takes a lot of emotional labor, I will tell you that. It takes a lot of compromise, of conversation. The way that we decided to frame it is we said we want a ring-fenced amount, and we want the neglected areas of SRHR named in the announcement, we want them named in our commitment, and we got that. And I'm going to let Sandy talk a little bit more about that and exactly what that means. The final, and I think most important element of the way we're making history today is that we actually came together. So this sector said we are going to set aside our organizational interests, which are incredibly important. We're going to set aside the focus areas that we work on day to day, which are incredibly important, and we're going to work together. And we're going to talk about impact. We're going to talk about what we're going to do together. We're going to talk about what we have done together. And we're going to show up to the decision-making tables unified. And we did that. And so, here we are. We've made history. Largest ever investment in a single issue area in ODA in Canadian history. So we've made history. And I'm going to pass it off, and because I focused on what I was going to say, I forget who I'm passing it off to. Minister. Excellent. I'm glad she's speaking first. She's got my back. So I'm glad that I get to introduce the minister. The minister happens to be my MP. In addition, because if you don't know this, all roads lead back to Peterborough. That happens to be my MP. I've watched her grow into her portfolios. I loved working with Minister Bibeau. I still follow her and am very supportive of the work she's doing over at AG. But when my MP became the Minister for International Development, where I had spent 15 years of my life and lots of years studying before that, I was pretty excited. And to combine the portfolios of women and gender equality and international development, we're committed to women in Canada, we're committed to women abroad, and Minister Monsef's story tells that story. Minister Monsef's commitment and passion tells that story. So with no further ado, welcome to the stage.
And Eid Mubarak to my Muslim sisters and brothers. And congratulations to the an incredible amount of thoughtfulness, thoroughness, advocacy, imagination, and collaboration that has gone into the Thrive Agenda. You are setting a new standard, a new way for doing the work we're doing, and a new way of doing business with the Government of Canada. And you are setting the stage for what others could do when they aspire to put aside the silos and to come together. I want to congratulate you, Julia. It takes courage to collaborate, and it's a lot of hard work. And you and your team have been able to bring us all together and see a vision that may not have been articulated as well had it not been all of you making the pitch. So my job here is to acknowledge that we are on traditional territory. This gathering of the women of the world and feminists is happening on traditional territory that the Tsleil-Waututh, the Musqueam, and the Squamish peoples have called home for generations upon generations, and how fortunate we are to be their guests here for Women Deliver. My job is also to acknowledge the work of those who've come before me. This is a battle that had been waged and pursued and persisted upon by generations who have come before us. And my predecessor, Marie-Claude Bibeau, both with the investment in the Thrive Agenda and the investment we made in women's organizations through the Equality Fund, Minister Bibeau deserves a lot of kudos for seeing the vision. Now imagine it's 14 weeks before Women Deliver and the Prime Minister tells you that you are about to get a new minister. And that the work of the two departments responsible for Women Deliver, Women and Gender Equality and Global Affairs Canada, is about to get a lot more interesting. That's what happened when the Prime Minister asked me to also take on the role of international development. And I have a Deputy Minister in Diane Jacquevella and two Chiefs of Staff between Geoffroy Montpetit and Leslie Church, and the incredibly strong teams that these three leaders have working with them, we were able to move mountains. So let us give them Now the third part of my job is supposed to provide some closure to those who have worked really hard on this. I know there have been a lot of late night conversations and a lot of setbacks and moments of frustration, and I've learned that for your sake and for mine, you need to hear what we saw in working with you. So I'm about to hold up a mirror, okay? So bear with me. I know it's hot in here, but I think it's worth it. When I look around in this room at all the partners who've been working so diligently, collaboratively, with compassion and determination to advance the health of women, adolescents, and children everywhere in the world, let's bring in Anne Frank, a young feminist in her own right, into this room. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. You all embody that sentiment in the work that you do each and every day. And you have for years and years, and you've picked up the mantle from those who've done that before you. You saw a world that is in need of healing. Every 2 minutes, a woman dies from pregnancy complications or in childbirth. Every 2 seconds, a girl is married earlier than she need be. 214 million women in developing countries have an unmet need for contraception, and yet we know for every dollar invested in contraception, you get $2.20 back, and there's a world where 25 million unsafe abortions take place each and every year. You didn't wait a single moment before taking action and working to improve the world, and you have improved the world. We are improving the world. Together, our Canadian, international, and local partners and the governments of Canada, we are making huge strides in improving the health, nutrition, and the rights of some of the world's poorest and most vulnerable. By working with health workers, local leaders, women's groups at the community level, Canadian civil society organizations who have such a long and proud history in delivering results in health and nutrition, the most challenging context, we are making progress together, we've achieved a lot together, but we need to hold on to this moment. We need to celebrate. This is something that us feminists don't do nearly enough. Savor the moments where we get it right, where we move a mountain before we move to the next one. Because once we're done celebrating, tomorrow we get right back to work. So let's talk about Thrive. Let's talk about the future planning initiative partners who've come together in a coordinated way and compelled the Government of Canada to hear your case, to prioritize the health and rights agenda. You have shown leadership, you have shown courage, and you have shown unfailing dedication and tireless advocacy. It's impressive. You are breaking down silos, you're noticing the intersections of issues, solutions, and challenges, and you're able to articulate that, perhaps in a way that those before you were trying, and those before us weren't able to listen. The Government of Canada, and you heard the Prime Minister make this announcement himself earlier today, we are counting on your legacy of expertise and experience. And I have to congratulate each and every one of you for what you have done and what you'll continue to do. I want you to know that we are listening. And the success of this initiative is going to provide a success story that we're going to tell again and again so that we can continue to work together in this smart new way. Earlier today, the Prime Minister made the announcement he did, ramping up to an average of $1.4 billion a year until at least 2030 for the health and rights of women, adolescents, and children. This includes $700 million for sexual and reproductive health and rights. And yes, this is a historic pledge. It's an important moment in Canadian history and in the history of the women's movement. It's a commitment to achieving SDGs by 2030, and we know that the only way to do that is by advancing gender equality and removing barriers that hold women and girls back from achieving their full potential. So, control over their bodies, this is a, what is it? I'm preaching to the converted. Having the right to choose when and where and how. We settled this debate a long time ago. Having access to contraception, we know that. Sexual education, we know that. Support of a woman's right to choose. You already know this. Okay, so another announcement. We are partnering with Canadian organizations on a variety of initiatives to improve outcomes for the most vulnerable. And right now, today, I am pleased to announce that we will launch an upcoming $325 million call for proposals over the next 5 years to begin this work immediately. We are serious about doing this work, and we're doing this in parallel with supporting women's grassroots organizations on the ground. At home, here in Canada, you want to help Indigenous women, you want to help those in rural, remote, and northern parts of our country, you see the value and the economic potential in closing the gender wage gap, visit the Community Foundations of Canada website, visit the Canadian Women's Foundation website, visit Grand Challenges Canada. We just invested $30 million in them, and for every dollar that you donate to them, we will match you dollar for dollar for our sisters and for gender equality here in Canada. So we're taking care of business at home. We're taking care of things at home. We have work to do here at home, but we know that unless all of us are free, none of us are free. So we're investing $300 million in the Equality Fund, the first platform that has brought together NGOs, it's brought together governments, philanthropists, and the private sector to say, let us work together, no more silos, and let's support grassroots women's organizations We are looking for additional partners. I see the Jess and the Jess who made it happen. Congratulations. Visit equalityfund.ca if you want to be a part of the work we're doing in supporting women's organizations at home. All this to say, none of these rights are carved in stone, as my predecessor in another role, Patty Heine, would say. For every step forward, there has always come pushback. And Let Women Deliver be that moment where we all leave the convention center in beautiful BC, energized by the fact that we are part of this movement, determined that we will not go back, and ensure that our tenacity and determination moves us forward towards the Sustainable Development Goals in a faster, more effective way than if we don't work together. So congratulations, enjoy today, and keep up the good work.
So, as the Minister mentioned, the Future Planning Initiative, so we have CanWatch and our membership, and then we have the Future Planning Initiative, which includes a whole other spectrum of organizations, and really the Thrive Agenda came to fruition because we all work together. And it has been such a great honor to work with your team, to work with the team of the Future Planning Initiative, and so I welcome to the stage Sandeep to speak a little bit more.
Thank you so much, everyone, and it's a tremendous honor for me to be speaking on behalf of the Future Planning Initiative. A tremendous honor for me to be sharing the stage with these three fine people, and to say that we're thrilled with today's announcements that were made by the Prime Minister and Minister Monsef is an understatement. I think ecstatic is perhaps more like it. This is simply an unprecedented commitment. It's an unprecedented commitment for global health in terms of Canada's commitments, and it's the single biggest commitment for global SRHR ever made by anyone anywhere. I am so proud that Canada is putting its weight behind the sexual and reproductive rights of women and girls at a time when there is global pushback to these rights around the world. And that is vital. That leadership is vital. In doing so, Canada is saying that it's willing to invest in some of the most neglected issues within this agenda. And it is willing to recognize that in order for people to have control over their future, they need to have control over their bodies. The rights and needs of us in this room, of us in this country, are no different than the rights and needs of everyone around the world. And I was so grateful for the Prime Minister for acknowledging that this morning, and for Minister Monsef. That seems hardwired into how you think, and I just am so grateful for that. In these times, our global partners have been saying to us, well, we need Canada to be a beacon of leadership on these issues in these times. Over the last 3 years, it feels like Canada have made a great start. But with this announcement, it feels like Canada is there. Canada is there, and that is being seen. Canada is going to stay there with this long window of a commitment, and that is worth celebrating. And another thing that is unprecedented, as has been commented on by Julia and by the Minister, is the collaboration around this room. This took the tremendous work of everyone around us, and many others that aren't here and couldn't be with us today. This is unprecedented. Could you picture this happening in 2010? The opposite was happening. We were all in our little compartments doing our own things. I couldn't even picture this 2 years ago. But here we are today, having made it happen, having come together, and this is truly a testament to the power of advocacy right here and right now. And let us celebrate that.
Thank you, Cindy. I would now like to invite Natasha to the stage, a young leader from the Global South who's here to share her truth. We asked her to come and speak to us about some of the things that she's thinking when she heard that announcement from the stage. I think, voices from the Global South and being informed by community needs is a principle that is held very dear to our sector. It's something we talk a lot about, and I'm just so privileged and pleased to invite Natasha to come speak.
first got into reproductive health work a few years ago, and at the time I was a medical student. I didn't have any money on me, but I had the passion, and I felt like I had to be part of the solution. So I went around my university campus and received money from fellow students. It was like 20 cents, 30 cents. Putting all that money together, I came up with about $300, and we used that to start our first project. Many years down the line, I'm happy to say that we have reached more than 50,000 young people with reproductive health information and services, which really brings out the point that each one of us in this room has something we can give out to the people around us. This meeting today is a representation of the power of advocacy. And coming from the Global South myself, I'm really happy to be here because this is a story I'll take back to my fellow advocates in my country to show them that it really, truly is possible to create change if we come together for a common good. As we go into the implementation of this program, I'd like us to think about involvement of young experts like myself. I'd like us to think about involvement of the beneficiaries of these programs. And we need to ask them, you need to ask us, what do you need? What are your priorities? What should we be focusing on? Because only if we are involved will these programs succeed. I'd also like us to think about the fact that it is important for us to look at women as a whole. Even as we begin to look at reproductive health, we need to think about what other factors will make our programs either successful or not successful. Women are complex beings, and I'm sure you've seen that picture of a manual on how to understand women, and it's like this big. Well, it is true. It is true that we are complex beings, and that's what makes us special. And so as we go into the work on gender equality, we need to think about the many aspects, like the economic aspects of it, and how that impacts on sexual and reproductive health programming. I'm really happy to be in Canada, to learn from the best, and I just want to say to the Canadian government and to many people that are here, that we need to lift while we climb. Even as we continue to make good progress like these, we need to think about countries like the ones where I come from, where governments are not yet here. And as we continue to go up, we need to lift other countries with us, because not until the world moves together, we will not see that much progress. And lastly, before I leave, I'll leave us with a quote from Joyce Banda, who is a former Malawian president. She says, "Seeds of success in every nation are best planted in women and children." And I'm really happy that 10 years from now, we'll be back in this room, or another room, or in any part of the world where we will be, and we'll be happy to see that the investments that are made have produced fruit. Thank you so much.
Powerful words. Thank you for sharing. So before we close off, there are some thank yous, and I know this is not the Oscars, but I do want to acknowledge and really acknowledge in a deep way, the work that actually goes into like crafting something like this, into the late night phone calls. So I see you in the room. My team did not allow me to have a list in case we forgot someone, but I'm looking at you people who made this happen, and I really, as I've learned as an acting executive director, that sometimes by the time something gets to my inbox, it's pretty shiny, but I've been and will be on the other side of that when you're actually trying to shine it up, and the work that you women and men do to make this happen, I acknowledge it. I thank you for the tireless effort. And the one name that I do want to pull out, because she has a lot of extra gray hair from the work that it took to pull this off, is Lauren Dobson-Hughes. The pen and had much much of the vision behind this, but also did the work to help us come together, and I just acknowledge that, and I thank you for that. And I also want to thank the team at the Minister's office, at the Prime Minister's office, Geoffroy, Hannah, Deanne. We see you, we acknowledge what it took in the last, 24 hours, 48 hours, and year to get us here. And if you've ever hung out with political staffers, literally Hannah and Geoffroy were getting their dinner at 11:45 last night. I am not kidding you. So the work is long and it's hard, and I acknowledge it, and I thank you. And to our communications teams that are here, I wish you Godspeed. Shout this from the rooftops. This is historic. Make sure the world knows what we're doing, and make sure the world knows why we're doing it. So your job is now, and was before too, but it's really now as well. And the minister just made an announcement of a call for proposals, so we can take tonight off. But time to start thinking about those logical frameworks. They're going to be fun. That's exciting though. This work is going to get done. It's going to start now. That's a moment to be celebrated. So thank you all so much for being here. I will let you mingle and mix. There is a whole room over there where we can mingle and mix, but I'm kind of liking this crowded feeling. Thank you for being here today.